This show brought to you by Circle of Seven Productions, www.cosproductions.com. Please be sure to subscribe and welcome to our circle.
Well, hello, everybody. It is already the 23rd of January. Time just needs to slow down. Okay. My name is Patricia W. Fisher, and I am your host of Readers Entertainment Radio. And I'm super excited for all of the new authors we're going to bring on the show this year. We're going to have contemporary, obviously a few romance authors. We're going to have some paranormal. We're going to have some nonfiction. We're going to have some poets. We're going to have, just like tons of fun stuff. Hallmark authors, all sorts of fun, fabulous, wonderful creative types that tell beautiful stories and are able to put beautiful sentences together. So we're super excited about that. It is Thor's Day, like it always is for Readers Entertainment Radio. So wherever you are, Chris Hemsworth, we're thinking of you, and you're always welcome to come on the show. And in just a few minutes, we're going to have an author come on the show. Her name is Abigail Owen, and Abigail grew up consuming books and exploring the world through her writing. She attempted to find a practical career to relate it to her favorite pastime of earning a degree in English rhetoric, technical writing. However, she swiftly discovered that writing without imagination is nearly not as fun as writing with it. 10-plus years later, she finished her first book, and Abigail is now a multi-award-winning author who has written 30 novels, novellas, and short stories under 2 and soon-to-be 3 pen names with more to come. She is also the owner and operator of Authors on a Dime, a company which provides services to help authors like herself. Abigail loves every part of the publishing journey and considers herself damn lucky to be living out her dream every day. You can follow her on her website, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Her newest book, The Rogue King, is out now, and she's going to call in just a second. And it's a whole new supernatural world, especially for dragon. It's a dragon shifter book, and so I'm, kind of digging this. That she's going to talk to us about it today, about how she builds those worlds, how she finds the time to write and juggle everything else in her life. So as soon as she gets here, we will ask her all of those fabulous questions. In the meantime, we are always looking for authors to come on the show, and as well as talk about books they love and books they've written. So if you are an author and want to come on the show and talk to me a little bit about that, it's relatively painless. All you have to do is sit there and talk to me, and you can drink coffee or whatever as we're discussing things, and that's always fun, just to kind of have someone who truly appreciates and understands someone's love for books and writing and everything else. So Abigail will be with us in a minute. I know this sounds terrible because it sounds like we're just kind of buying time, because she should be calling in any second. We started a little bit earlier than what we anticipated, so I'm hoping that she will give us a shout here in just a minute. In the meantime, I wanted to mention a few books that will be coming out in the next few weeks, so go pick them up. So we have got, let me grab my handy-dandy calendar for this. So you've got a few books coming out next month, and one of them that I've been super excited about is called The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. It looks hysterical. It's a wonderful romance. The Kissing Game by Marie Hart from Source Books, and then you've got Postscript, Cecile Ahern, and then also The Wedding Assistant is coming out. Chasing Cassandra is coming out by Lisa Kleypas. And then The Inconvenient Duke by Anna Harrington will also be out next month. And then you also have A Cowboy to Remember by Rebecca Weatherspoon. And if you've not seen that cover, wow, it is hot. So get it and pick it up. And The Solids Grounds Coffee Company. I'm actually a big coffee lover, so I'm totally looking forward to that. We also have Sasha Summers and Terry Wilson coming up in the next few weeks. And then I am also working on this really lovely young man. I'm hoping to bring him on the show here. He actually won the Independent Book Award, like for all books, and he wrote this book of poetry. It's called, and his name is Fernando Rover Jr., and he's actually from here in San Antonio. And his book is just a beautiful list of poems that he wrote. And I am talking to him about coming on the show next month. So I think that he will be a lovely guest. He's just been wonderful to talk to online and everything else. And so I'm looking forward to it. But in the meantime, as we're waiting for that, we have Miss Abigail Owen, or Katie Scott, on the line. So how are you today, Miss Abigail?
Good. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I was talking to everyone and telling them about your Rogue King, which is the new book coming out for your paranormal series. And so tell me, why paranormal?
Well, I guess because I've always loved paranormal, believe it or not. So I was that kid that read like every Star Wars book that ever came out, which is more sci-fi than paranormal, really. But and the Lord of the Rings, so I was into fantasy, and I didn't realize. And then I read romance my entire life. Starting with, my mom had like shelves of them, and when she noticed me getting interested at about the age of 10, she wrote what age I was allowed to read each book on the inside cover.
Oh, nice.
And I didn't realize until Twilight, believe it or not, that people wrote them combined with paranormal and romance, and I was like, what? This is out there? Because let's be honest, the Lord of the Rings and even Star Wars to a certain extent, and those they don't really focus on the romance. You might get like a little bit, but never enough for me. So that's when I was like, oh, then there's tons. That's how I got started.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how I've talked to so many people, and they say, well, romance is just romance. I'm like, no, it's like an umbrella over about 50 different other umbrellas. And they say, people, that's right, they write that? I'm like, well, don't people fall in love in every aspect
in every culture,
of the earth?
Seriously, yeah. And in all forms of imagination, like that tends to be, in my world at least, a central theme of life. Like the people that you love, surrounding yourself with that.
Yeah, and it's, that's kind of how it goes in the real world. So, and speaking of that, it's the whole process of, because I know a lot of people think, and I've talked to a bunch of writers about it, they're all like, well, I do have an idea for paranormal, but man, the world building is huge.
That is my favorite part, though.
Is it?
And totally. I can completely lose. In fact, they have to dial me back. Frequently, my editor has to be like, no, you've written 4 books already in this series. You've established these things about the world, and you can't, explode it out even bigger. And I'm like, but why not?
Come on, we all want to
find it. Yeah, seriously, right? And I don't find it as intimidating in paranormal as I do, say, in historical, because this is my imagination, I can make it whatever I want, and nobody gets to argue with me. This is my world. Whereas, like with historical, or if you're writing about a specific culture, especially if it's not your own, the amount of research that needs to go into that, and the kind of, especially with historical, marrying that with modern day sensibilities so that it still feels modern but is accurate, and people can be so nitpicky and persnickety, those would intimidate me, I think. I read them first, but I don't know that I could write one because they would intimidate me so much. Whereas paranormal, it's like I get to just go, and I'm not constrained by the current, like I write contemporary as well, and I'll tell you right now, I feel more constrained with those because I have to stick to the human rules.
Right. Yeah, they can do anything they want in this other world. And I mean, but you have to be consistent within your own world. So I mean, how far out do you plot? If you say I'm going to write 3 books in a series, how far do you pull that thread for making sure the world is stable and then building on top of it?
So I'm finding that I do it more and more for the entire series. The Dragon series with the Rogue King, I have not only that, because that's a 4-book series, but there's a concurrent series called Fire's Edge that is all ebook, and it's released every other one. So a Fire's Edge book comes out, and then an Inferno Rising, and they're all in the same dragon world. And so I had to basically plot out, and not major plot points, but for every character that I name that's going to show up in most of the books, I have what they're doing in every single one of those books on a spreadsheet, so that I don't forget a character, so that their character journey continues forward. So there's that piece of it. For me, the characters are actually almost more important than the world building necessarily, because to me the world building is the framework that you set up to let your characters play in. So to me, it's the character development that I really have to plot out. Now, when I first started, I wrote a book not realizing I was going to make it a series, and then had written myself into corners that way. And so, yeah, I learned from that mistake to at least plot out all the books in the series that I think I'm going to write.
Yeah, I mean that's hard because, you know, as much as readers will fall in love with your characters, whether, you know, it's a contemporary series or paranormal, they will hold you to that truth in that world.
They absolutely do. And it's almost scarier with the later books, especially if they've particularly fallen in love with a specific character, because then I'm going up against expectations. I think that's honestly why a lot of these more recent Star Wars movies have failed, is because there's such specific fan expectations. You're not going to please the fans. Whereas like Rogue One had no expectations, because while there was a vague reference to that in the original movies, there wasn't any major world building around it, and none of the characters were in any of the rest of the movies, and so like there were no expectations, and I think that's why people like that movie so much better than most of the rest of the new ones that come out. So that expectation setting is tricky.
It is, and you're right. You're not going to please everyone, and some people are going to be like, no kissing, and other people are like, why aren't we developing this relationship? And because it's normal. It would be normal. It was funny because one of my daughters was talking about how the Jedi are flawed. I mean, she loves the Jedi, but she was saying this is flawed because you just can't be on your own your entire life. I mean, you can't just walk away from everything. It's not realistic.
And live in a bubble, and
Yeah, it's not, you just don't do that. I mean, people need people around them, like you're saying, to, love them and take care of them and make sure that got their back. And so, it's very interesting, the thought of, you should be able to completely shut down everything. And it's like, that's not fun at all.
Save people.
Right.
Yeah. I found that was not one of my favorite pieces of the character building in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it's not going to work. So, and so you also write contemporary romance, and you had something that come out recently from Tule, correct?
Yeah.
Tule Publishing.
So that was the fifth and final book in my cowboy contemporary romance series. They all follow a family called the Hills, and it's each sibling from the family. And so this was the final book, the Carter's, the only girl in the family, her story. I had a ton of fun writing those because I live in Texas. I didn't grow up on a ranch, but I grew up with lots of ranching friends, and just love the kind of the mythology of the cowboy, because obviously reality is kind of a different thing. But I just love the honest, sexy, hardworking with lots of muscles cowboys. And so those were a ton of fun to write. I love doing those, and those are on the steamy side, under my Katie Scott name. And then actually I'm about to go into sweet romance, sweet contemporary, with a third pen name because I'm crazy. Because, poor life decisions on my part. But actually what it is I love all shades of romance and want to write them all, is what it comes down to.
Well, and that's a good question that someone might be listening going, well, why would you have a bunch of pen names if you're willing to talk about that you're all these people? Why would you make up different pen names? For you, what's the answer?
It's a good question. Originally, I split out the two pen names because paranormal and contemporary were different enough. My publisher at the time was like, no, we want them to be separate. And I was like, all right. And then when Sweet came into the mix, I will say that Sweet readers, almost more than anybody else, are very particular about that's all they want is Sweet. For the most part. I read both, but for the most part, they tend to be very particular. And if they start an author that they love and it's Sweet, and then they happen to get one of their steamies, they will rip that author to shreds frequently. And so wanting to make sure that I'm communicating exactly what you're going to get is why I went with multiple pen names. If whichever pen name of mine you get, I'm very open about, hey, there's these others if you read everything like I do. But you know exactly what you're getting with this pen name versus this pen name.
Nice. Well, and I think that's also true. I've seen a lot of authors that will sit there and they'll write under this name for this, and then they'll have a kids series. Well, it's totally different name because, you know, of course you don't want the crossover.
And especially with kids, absolutely. You don't want to be bringing them over into the adult world yet.
Right. One of the few people I see that does this well, and he's got in both, and I think they're enough different that people obviously know it's not, you know, the crossover. Brad Meltzer has a whole espionage series, and he's a thriller writer. And then he's got this kids series, but it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And he's got these wonderful, but they're brilliantly illustrated. And so he's got, you know, Amelia Earhart and Rosa Parks and Abraham Lincoln and all these different characters, Lucille Ball and George Washington and Martin Luther King. And I mean, so he's got all these different ones, and then, but it's obvious. You know, it's Brad Meltzer, but there's like it's an animated character on the front. I mean, it's not the same as his other kind of, you know, no one's going to mess that up.
Exactly.
Which is nice.
And mine, probably you can tell the difference between the Sweet and Steamy. And the Steamy tend to have the couple on the cover. My Sweet, not as much. The titles might give it away maybe. But I also get reviews about my Steamy contemporaries that are like, for a sweet and easy read, and I'm like, it is sweet. It's family-based, right? And since it's following this whole family, but there are open-door sex scenes in there.
Right.
So that's, you know, that's not sweet technically.
Right. Well, and it's funny because I have a good friend of mine, Tara West, and she was talking about how she had gotten these reviews, and one of them was terrible reviews. And one of them was, there was so much sex in this book I couldn't finish it, was one of them. And so she actually used that as one of her
selling points?
Like her selling points. So she was like, don't buy this book. It's got so much sex, readers can't finish it. And she sold a ton of books because we're like, smart. Well, you know, totally down for that.
My opinion is there's no bad review. Somebody read that book. And somebody else might want to see what they mean by, well, what do you mean too sex? All right.
Because for some people that's just open door at all. I mean, anything. Yeah. And for others it's, you know, fine. So it's very interesting what readers want and what they don't want. And I've always found, and I'm sure you've seen this being at signings, you just don't know looking at someone what they're going to want in a book.
No idea. Oh. And I also find it interesting at signings that there tend to be, I don't know why it is, but I'll go to one signing. Usually I have, you know, both sets of my books there on the table. I'll be like, do you want paranormal? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what about cowboys? And they're like, oh, yes. And at a given signing, I'll sell all my cowboys and not a single paranormal. And at the next one, it's all my paranormal and nobody wants cowboys. And I'm like, I just give up.
You don't know
what people are going to want. Yeah.
You don't know, and it's funny. You know, people are like, oh no, and even just walking up, you can have some really, you know, 90-year-old woman with a walker walking up to you, all straight-laced grandma, and she's like, I'll take the sexy one. You know, you don't know.
Yeah, give me the erotica. Yeah, okay, awesome.
Sure.
Well, I gotta
grandma,
say,
whatever you want.
Exactly. I gotta say, because I read everything, that's great for me because it means people are out there writing everything.
Yeah. I think it's fun to see, you know, the variety. Every time I walk into Barnes & Noble, I'm just like, where do I start? You know,
where? Yeah, just so many choices.
It's like a junkie. It's like, oh, I don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, and for the longest time as I was growing up,
no more books.
Yeah, seriously, my husband does that too. He's like, you're on a budget, woman, and I'm like, yes. I don't need to eat this month. It's fine. Reading is more important.
That's right. I'll just have sandwiches. I'm good. That's fine.
Yeah, we're good. Tuna, ramen. I did it in college.
Yep.
Made me skinnier than I am now, so let's go with that.
Solid work. We got it. So when you were growing up, I mean, what were some of your favorite authors when you were growing up? Like you were just like, because I know that sometimes I talk to my kids and I'll say, yeah, I remember the time when we had to wait like a year and a half for a book to come out, and they're just like mortified. So, what were some of your favorites?
I was spread all over the place, and because let's see, I'm trying to think. As a kid, I was hugely into the Black Stallion books, which were all written.
Okay.
They were done. And I still own that full series. It's falling apart because I read them cover to cover so many times. But yeah, I still have them. And oh gosh, I'm trying to think. Of course, I read all the kind of the teeny bopper ones like the Sweet Valley Highs, and those came out they were practically serial ones. Then I got my mom was an English teacher, so I hit all the classics. Little Women is one of my favorites of all time. But again, I'm not going to wait for any given author. In high school, I really got into, I mentioned the Star Wars books. I got into the Timothy Zahn, the Thrawn series of Star Wars books. And then that was kind of one of the first Star Wars continuation series to come out in books. And then right about the time I finished that series, a ton more books came out. There was one on like the Rogue Squadron, and there was one on the Jedi Academy, and like all of these. And so I just got into reading anything that came out that had Star Wars on the cover, basically.
Yeah. So I guess you read Splinter in the Mind's Eye and all those.
Oh yeah.
Those two. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and in fact was like, why didn't they just take the Thrawn series and make the continuation movies out of that? They already had the first series right there. And so I found that very interesting. And then in the romance space, like I said, my mom had all those books, and almost all of hers were historical. And so it's authors that a lot of people don't recognize the names anymore, like Jane Smith, because it's from like the 80s and 70s. And then I really got into used bookstores. And so again, I've got I've got tons from like Carrie Allen and Dorothy Cork, and these are all 70s and 60s writers, because that's what I could find in the used bookstores section.
Right.
And then at Barnes & Noble, for a long time, I couldn't get into the thicker romances. They were just too long. I needed something I can read in like 2 hours, and so I would just go straight to that end cap with the Harlequins and grab my monthly, 6 books and walk right up to them.
Right.
Yeah, and so I read anything that came out of those.
Wow.
Now I read.
I think the first time,
everything.
Oh, just everything. And that's always what's fun about going to writers' conferences, because you come back with all these books, and it's just like,
yeah. It's so true.
I have an extra suitcase.
Exactly. I have to take an extra small suitcase just so I can bring back all the books.
Yeah, and it's sad because I do a local TV segment, and so monthly for books, so I always need books to put in the bags. And I come home, and the past several years when I've gone to nationals, it's been I just ship them back. And so I'm always so excited when that big box shows up at my doorstep. Of course, my husband's just looking at me like, oh. I was like, they're going away. I'm pretty sure I'm going to give most of them away.
I'm pretty sure. At least some of these are not going to end up in our household. Yeah.
Not forever. Just for a little bit. So,
I don't know, though. I'm a rereader.
Yeah. I think I've read, A Knight in Shining Armor by Jude Devereaux. I'm pretty sure I've read that about 4 times.
Yeah.
And I've read all of the Judith McNaught books at least twice.
Mine was the Joanna Lindsay books.
Uh-huh.
I've read all of them, multiple times. I read Rebecca Zanetti over and over. All of her books are fantastic. And she's more in the paranormal space. Who else? Lately, also Laura Temple.
Yeah. Okay.
Love her.
Cool. We'll put that down. That's what's so fun about it, because whenever and you do it too, I'm sure, because as much of a reader as you are, as you go to stores, you're like, oh, this is a new author to me. Well, who's this? I love that.
Yep. Well, I actually love judging for contests for the same reason, because it puts new authors that I wouldn't necessarily have been on my radar or seen, especially in this world of indies. And there's just so many books that come out in a given month. I mean, so many. And so I love finding readers or our new authors through that. I will say that my reading has slowed down significantly since becoming a writer. And I don't know if you found this. I've become, for two reasons. I've become much pickier. I used to be able to read anything, and as long as it had a happily ever after, I did not care how it was written or how the characters felt. But now that that's all in my head and it's something that I'm looking at so closely in my own writing, I'm much pickier about it, and so that makes it harder. But I also find that my time is, I don't know. I'm also, I'm a mom. I'm in my 40s. I've got responsibilities and all the stuff that goes along with that. And so it was much easier to read a lot in my 20s and teens.
Yeah. So, and let's talk about that a little bit. So you reading and reading and reading, and then you say, I'm going to write a book someday. What was the catalyst?
I had been trying to write books that entire time. For probably 20 years, I think I started 25, 30 books, and they were all contemporary romances. And kind of along the lines of the Harlequins that I read so much. And with each one, I learned a little bit more, and I got a little further. But something about page 100, I would just be like, I don't know what to do. Like, like the middle of the book, and the middle of the book still gets me stuck frequently where I'm like, okay, how do I connect this?
Right.
And it wasn't until I read those Twilight books and then discovered that paranormal romance was a thing, and my first child was born and I was on maternity leave, and I was like, I'll write a book, and it just poured out of me. And
wow.
It was one of those things where, like, within 6 weeks I'd finished the book. And was like, I finished it, and just went back to work. Happened to be, I think I had my second child. Happened to be working like a 60-hour work week job. Was getting my MBA. My kids were like 2 and 4, and decided that would be a great time to pull that book out of the cobwebs, find an editor, and self-publish that thing.
Oh, for sure. That's a beautiful time to do all that, because Lord knows you don't have enough to do.
Exactly. And so it kind of started with that. And then from there, it's almost like when you run a marathon the first time, and then it's like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And just the finishing no longer becomes daunting. Now it's finishing it with, then it turned into finishing it with so many words on the page. And then it was with these things that I'd learned from workshops or from editors or whoever incorporated. And then it was, let's see if I can finish, because I used to write it in chunks completely out of order, just whatever scene came to me. And now I write it from beginning to end. I was totally a pantser. And now I'm a plotter.
Yeah.
So who knew?
Yeah. And I think there comes a point, especially that first book, nobody knows you exist. Right? And you could write that first book for 20 years if you wanted. But once that first book exists and you get that contract and then people read your characters, the pressure is on. I mean, there's no, maybe I'll write this scene today. It's
absolutely.
They want your stuff.
I got to say that, all those writing teams out there where you have multiple authors under one pen name and they come out with a book a month added to that pressure. And I love reading those. I love reading those. But then suddenly, 6 months to a year between books, and readers weren't remembering that you existed because it's been so long since you had your last book out.
Right.
And that adds to the pressure, absolutely.
Yeah, to keep going. So, you started as an indie, correct?
Mhm. I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have, so you're a hybrid now because you have both traditional published and then an indie. So what made you want to get a traditional deal as well?
Well, so I had started out indie mostly because I didn't know if I was a good enough writer. And so my theory was I'll put one book out there, see what total strangers say about it, because they're, unlike my family, they're not going to lie to me. And if that was good enough, then maybe I'll keep going and we'll see how it goes. And because I had looked at the process for getting traditionally published, and to me that was going to take too long to figure out that I was or was not a good writer. Whereas by self-publishing, I was able to get that feedback pretty much immediately. And the reviews came back positive, so I was like, maybe I can try this, gig. But in my head, I thought that if you were traditionally published, you get a lot more help with visibility. And with, obviously, on the indie side, you're paying for everything. You're paying for your editor. You're paying for your book cover. Now, luckily, I do book cover design, so that helped. But I still had to pay quite a bit of money for an editor. And then, of course, paying for all the marketing. And I didn't have reach. I didn't have like a built-in audience, whereas a lot of publishers have kind of a built-in audience. And I thought that will help. And so that's why I ended up going through the traditional route. What I found at first, and this is not as true anymore, was that it absolutely helps in terms of, the book cover and the packaging and making sure it's a really well edited book, et cetera. And some publishers more than others certainly help with finding audiences, or they'll help with marketing and that kind of thing, and that's fantastic. I do love that part of it. But at first, at least, the publishers didn't move fast enough for me. I'm a fast writer. And I would get really frustrated with, like, I turned this book in a year ago and it's still not out. Like, what? What the heck? That is less of a problem now because I have such a pipeline that I'm like, yeah, I wrote it a year ago, but the book that I wrote the year before that is coming out, and the book before that, and, so, like, now there's a decent pipeline, and I don't, like, the timing doesn't bother me as much. But I still love the indie side of things where I get total control over everything. And so I find I like hopping back and forth. It gives me different outlets creatively.
Right. And I was talking to someone earlier today about this, when the RWA conference was in San Antonio, there was a woman who was doing a talk about who has the most staying power, your indie or traditional writers. And this was right when everything was really going like full-blown. Everyone was going to go indie, and there was all this discussion with publishers and blah, blah, blah. And, of course, after that conference, a lot of people were like, yeah, I don't want to do all that work. It's fine. And there were some that were like, well, I like the indie. And everybody was coming into this workshop, this talk, because they thought she was going to present all this information on writing, the romance writing. Well, what she did is she came up with all the information of every book ever that's published on Amazon. So she was like, the majority of the people who publish really only make it was like $38, but she was putting everything up there. And so people got up and like half the room got up and walked out in the first 5 to 10 minutes. And I wasn't quick enough to leave. And then I felt bad. I didn't want to, leave because, she looked kind of devastated. But the main thing I took from that, though, was she said the people who have the most staying power are the hybrids, because you have all these baskets. So if you only write for one publisher, that's fine. But if that line goes away, which is what we've seen happen.
I've actually been in a line that got shut down.
Right. So where do you go? She was saying that the hybrid writer is the one that will have the most staying power in the market.
I can honestly, absolutely see that because you're more flexible and more nimble. You can pivot around various different things. I think it honestly, though, really depends on personality, because I really enjoy doing all aspects of the publishing from, kind of soup to nuts, right? So I love all of that. Right. But I have friends who are so intimidated by having to deal with every single decision like that's not for them, and that's okay. It's kind of like a whatever works for you to get out there. But I will absolutely agree after having experience being part of a line that shut down, and it shut down a month after my first book came out with them that was supposed to be a 7-book series. And that series just never went anywhere again after that. It just, because it took so long to get the rights back, and then it took so long. It was just kind of a long slog, but because I had other things in the hopper, it was like, well, that just happened to that, and I'll keep going. I think it did help being hybrid for that, or certainly being published with multiple publishers, and which is an odd thing. It used to be there was very much a loyalty base where you were with one publisher and that's who you were with. Right. But I've also will say that I've learned a lot from every publisher and editor that I work with. There's some that I have loved more than others, but I've loved them all. And I've always learned something new or something different or a different approach, and seeing how everybody kind of can do things all their own way, which has been very interesting. To me, the staying power, honestly, though, has more to do with being able to take all the rejections and all the slogging through it, and this book not selling when you thought it would, and this one doing weird things and having no idea why this marketing effort worked and this one didn't, and being able to just almost compartmentalize it and say, this is a business, I keep going.
Absolutely.
That,
yeah.
I think every author I've seen that has major staying power, it's because they were like, I just kept going.
Yeah. Oh, that's for sure. I mean, I've talked to many people over the years, and they like, well, I put one book out and nobody liked it, so I just never did it again. And I thought, well, that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. I mean, everybody's got a book that fell on its face. It's okay. And you're right. I mean, but you see that in any field that you have to put your baby on the block, as it were, that you're really just basically putting your heart out there, and people just have no interest. And it sucks, but
or
it
didn't
is what
find
it is.
Or didn't like it in the way that you thought they would. It's kind of a whatever. Yeah, it is exactly. It is what it is. It does help now that I've got multiple. Like if they had come back on that first book that I put out there, where I was just testing the waters to see if I was decent enough that people would actually not fall over it, that if they had been like, this is terrible, horrible writing, and nobody should ever read this person again, I probably wouldn't have continued. Now, I've got enough books under my belt that it's like if one doesn't do quite as well, I'm like, all right, fair enough. I will say I can never predict what readers are going to like. Like, almost consistently, my favorite book in any of my series is the least favorite book in terms of reviews.
Huh. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. It is nuts to me.
So,
it's just different, because it's like, well, wait a minute, this was hands down my favorite book, and why did it hit the way it hit with me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so what has been the biggest surprise regarding, say, like a character? So has there ever been a situation where you've had people, they love your books, and they're writing to you and they're saying or telling you, what are you going to do with such and such character? And you just look at them like, I wasn't planning to do anything with that character. And people are like, but you have to. Have you ever had that situation?
I haven't so far, but I think because I've already almost every character in my head, unless it's a character that I literally name, and that's all I do with them is like, it's, Mr. Jones walked into the grocery store and bought, whatever, pig feed behind me, and that's all Mr. Jones does on the page, then okay, whatever. But almost every character that gets something beyond that, I usually add enough to it that I'm like, I wonder what's going on with this guy. So I do it to myself, which is why I keep writing, like I said, my first book was one where I didn't intend for it to be a series. And then I was like, oh, well, now we can write about all these other people I put in there.
Right. Let's give them some more cousins. And I was laughing about your talk about building worlds, and it kind of goes along the same lines of, there's all these other people. I was talking to Beverly Jenkins not too long ago, and I was asking her about when she's doing her research, how does she keep from going down the rabbit hole? Because it's so hard, because she writes these beautiful historical romances, and it's like, how do you not get distracted? And she said, well, there are times that I just have to basically reel myself back, because she had a book she was writing, and she's in 1860s or 1880s southern Louisiana, and it's at night. So she's like, I know there's frog noises. Like, what kind of frogs? So she looks up frogs, and then she realizes there's a guy who had a frog circus, and it's just like She said, I'm not going to use any of that. She's like, but after an hour, she realizes that she's been just completely taken off. Yeah. And and I said, so what did you end up using? She's like, they were just frog sounds.
Just frog noises. Yeah. Yep. I've even had moments where, like, I wrote 4 pages of, isn't this interesting? And then was like, oh no, people are that's just telling people about a book report, basically, that I just did on that topic.
Right. But I think sometimes it's healthy for writers, because it's for us to get it out of our heads. Yeah. And then I've done that to where I've written like huge paragraphs, and I'll say, I could just write this in a sentence if they just say something or do something. And so I have to go back, and I'll actually sometimes just cut it out, paste it somewhere else, which, I'm sure I'm thinking I'm going to go back one day and grab this bit of brilliance I've, created and then just fix it and go back to the next day.
So I will actually do that too, but I live in OneNote, and so I have a thing on OneNote that is cut scenes and paragraphs. And I will use that in my social media. So that will go out to newsletters. It'll be like, this was something I wrote that didn't make it into the book about this. Here you go. And readers enjoy that.
Wow. And I mean, I bet they do. It's like a little extra nugget of something that other people don't get.
Yep.
If they don't subscribe
or I'll
to
even
your
show them,
newsletter.
like, this is what the page ended up looking like. This was what it was before I cut this out.
So now I took your organization class a couple of weeks ago, and I was watching it going, holy crap, you're like completely organized. I'm just blown away. But when you were doing OneNote, you do a folder, and then you do subcategories under each project. So you would say you're writing, book 4, and then it would be scenes and cut scenes or whatever under book 4. It'd be like a folder under
book
that,
4.
Correct?
Yep, so I know exactly what
Okay.
it's from. Yeah, because I tend to think more in books. And I wouldn't want to have to, because, like, I cut so much that so many scenes eventually that if I had it all in one spot, it would just be never ending and hard to search through. But if I know that I cut that one scene from The Enforcer, I'll just go find it. It's much easier to find it that way. Or when I'm doing, when Enforcer finally gets around for release a year after I've turned it in, I've got all that there ready to go, and I don't have to go fish it out.
Wow.
I love OneNote, though.
Okay.
It's just the way it sets up with the notebooks and then the tabs and then the pages, and you can just, I keep my entire life in that thing.
Yeah, and also you said you can access it anywhere, which is great because you're not worried about, did I put it in the spiral notebook or everything's right there.
What Word document did I save it in? Did I move it over because I tend to blow through computers pretty quickly. I don't know how. I set one on fire on accident. Well, it set itself on fire. It just started smoking, and I was like, what's that? And so I don't know what I do to them, but I'm hard on computers apparently. And so if I didn't have everything already in OneNote and OneDrive, I would have to be worried about what I'd lose when I moved things over. All those 25 books that I started before I ever finished a book are on discs somewhere. I have no idea where. I'll never get those books back.
Right. So we have about 3 minutes left. So tell us, what is your next project?
Oh, I've got a bunch of projects going on. This is my year of write a lot. Let's see. So I just had the Cowboy book come out. That was January. In my Dragon Shifter world, the next big book that's coming out is The Blood King. So that's the follow-on to Road King, and that's coming out in August. Between now and then, it was called my Legendary Consultant series of novellas. We've now, Entangled has contracted those, and we are rewriting them and setting them in my Dragon Shifter world and re-releasing them. So those are going to get all re-released between now and August. I have a sweet kitten matchmaker that's coming with Kensington. That's in October. It's Christmas-based. It's about a little kitten matchmaking they're in like a B&B, Victorian B&B.
Okay.
So that one's fun. And let's see what else. And then 2021, also under my sweet name, I have Amish romance coming, and so I'm really excited about that.
Wow. So you're just busy.
Oh yes. Yeah, very busy. But it's a good thing to have. This was what I wanted. This was my dream. What I wanted to do with my entire life. It is, I think, every writer will agree that it is an up and down roller coaster of how I'm going to make the money come in, part of it.
Yeah.
But, it's having the contracts and having the deadlines and things, that's a good thing for me.
That's absolutely a good thing. So if you have been listening, you've been listening to Readers Entertainment Radio. I'm Patricia W. Fisher, and this is Abigail Owen. She also writes under Katie Scott. And her most recent book under Abigail Owen, The Rogue King, Inferno Rising, Book 1 is out. And then her Katie Scott series is her last book in the Hill family's saga for Tule, and it's Landing the Lawman. And it's got a beautiful cover with lots and lots of bluebonnets on the front. And she's got tons of stuff coming up this year. And if you're looking for Katie, I have all the links to her Facebook, her Twitter, her Instagram, her website, and then you are a really avid Pinterest person too. So you can find her there too. All the links are in there, as well as the link to her books. So thank you so much for being on today, Katie.
Thank you so much
Abigail.
for having me. Oh, either one. I answer to all names at this point, none of which are my real name, by the way. So.
Okay, that's fair. So totally incognito when you're not wearing the writer's hat.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming. And if you are an author and need some help getting organized, she also has Authors on a Dime, which could help you out. So give her a shout, and that link is also in the write-up of the show. Thank you so much for coming on today.
This show brought to you by Circle of Seven Productions, www.cosproductions.com. Please be sure to subscribe, and welcome to our circle.
From the excitement of nominations to the applause after the opening of an envelope at the big award shows, The Hollywood Reporter is your source for the inside scoop on the moments leading up to and celebrating the wins of your favorite films, actors, and all the people that made them. Follow the race at HollywoodReporter.com for predictions, reviews, and voters. Check out the THR Awards Hub for everything you need for award season coverage. Visit THR.com today and subscribe to our newsletters so you don't miss a beat.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? If you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. Choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.